Welcome back and thank you for joining us again in Motkamel Financial Track. In the previous lecture, we talked about the first part in the options screen in the admin system. We're still on that topic and now we'll talk about the second part. We have several variables to discuss here. First, we have able to cancel annual closing. Now, this variable enables the user to cancel the annual closing and also add transactions in previous years, then reclose them. This one's related also to the activation of unclosed year screen, part of the closing screens. And like we said, that makes the user able to cancel the closing of previous years, cancel inventory closing, and move the due checks to the previous year that's been closed. Okay, the second variable is cancel posting not allowed. If you activate this variable, then canceling posted transactions will not be allowed, along with using the screens related to canceling posted inventory, accounts, purchases, and sales. Then we have show report in Hijri date. Now, activating this one means that the system will work based on Hijri calendar. When you click on display, the system shows you the Gregorian date and the Hijri date as well. Now, the user can adjust the dates if they do not match. You will click on edit first, then change the dates, and of course you will click on save before you exit the screen. Now we have establish document date. In case the user is adding consequent transactions, this variable fixes the date from the first transaction. Able to edit document number. This allows the user to edit the document number or the document numbers in the transactions. When you activate it, you can click on display to see all the users added, and you can select specific users who have the access or the privilege to edit document numbers. Click on status from the right, then edit, and after you're done, you will click on save. Then we have use expiry dates. If the activity you work in is related to fields like food industry or cosmetics or pharmaceutical, then you need to be able to add an expiry date to these products. When you activate this variable, the system activates use expiry dates in the items detail screen in the inventory system, of course. This also adds a column in the screens related to expiry dates, and in that column you can enter the expiry date of each item. This, of course, gives you information about the remaining period before an item expires and is no longer usable. Next variable we have is post salesman commissions, and activating this one means that the system will automatically post the salesman's commissions based on the transactions that they have made. This means that we need to select the account that we're posting to from the general ledger. Then we have use weight system measurements, and activating this variable opens up the measurement unit screen in the inventory system. It adds weight and size to the unit code update screen in the setup for the inventory system. It also activates the fields related to the measurement units in the incoming sales and purchase screens. And if you work with items that need to be measured, then you will definitely need to activate this variable. So just to give you guys an example, we'll bring up the measurement screen before activating this variable. And I want you to see that we have no options here, but if you activate the variable and you check it again, you will find the measurement units have been added to the menu. Alright, so now let's go back to the system admin screen to see the rest of the variables that we have. We have user stamp tax, and you can use this variable or activate it if it suits the law in your country. Now, if you activate it, it enables the stamp tax fields in the intermediate accounts screen, general ledger system as well, and in the sales invoices and the sales system. Next variable is gonna be use branch's current account for warehouse transfers, and this variable enables the user to add an interface account for the transactions that happen between the branches. you can determine that account in a field called branches account statement in the branches data screen. We also have activating SMS service, and this variable sends the user's texts about the transactions made on their accounts. And activating this variable also opens up the screen SMS settings in System Admin. You can use that screen to set up the SMS service. User serial number. If you activate this one, the system will create serial numbers for the inventory items in the incoming and outgoing screens, sales as well. This means that the user will be able to view item reports based on their serial numbers. Now we'll move on to the next variable, add sales invoice after outgoing stock order. In case you activate this variable, the system will not issue a sales invoice except with a dispatch order. In other words, the client will receive their items based on a previous dispatch order from the inventory, which will affect several things like the stock, cost, the stock outgoing interface account for sales, the outgoing revenue interface for the sales invoice. And after a client receives their items based on a dispatch order, the system allows you to create a sales invoice, and that consequently will affect several things like the customer's account revenues, while reversing the effect on things like the stock outgoing interface account for sales invoice and the revenue interface account for sales invoice. This makes a couple of changes in the system and adds a few fields like the intermediate account screen in the general ledger system, and also creating the dispatch order transaction in the outgoing order screen in the inventory system, which actually contains some data like selecting the customer you're going to dispatch this order to, and also selecting the outgoing type, which is going to be outgoing order before invoice. And to basically explain why we're choosing this outgoing type, this is actually going to be the only type available, and that is based on the activation of the variable add sales invoice after outgoing stock order. Then we also have generating a sales invoice, which contains the following data: invoice type, which is going to be invoice after stock outgoing order. Then we enter the customer's order number in the field request, and of course that's in the sales invoice screen. Once we enter the request number, we're able to view all of the customer's dispatch orders. Alright, so now let's move on to the variable after that. We have the variable add sales invoice before outgoing stock order. And if you activate this one, the system lets the user, or it lets you create a sales invoice before the dispatch order, which means that the customer's account and the revenues account will both be affected. Then we will create the dispatch order based on the invoice, which of course will make changes to the quantities that we have in stock. To work based on this variable, the user first needs to create a sales invoice from the sales invoice screen, and this will include the customer and the invoice type, which in this case is going to be invoice before outgoing order, and that is based on the variable add sales invoice before outgoing stock order. The second thing that the user will need to do is to create a dispatch order from the outgoing order screen. And as we know that in the inventory system, which contains the outgoing order type stock outgoing order after sales invoice, use the items weight in the system. This variable, if you activate it, the system allows the user to deal with weighable items, and that's by basically adding the weight of each item from the items detail screen. This lets you see the weight per unit and the collective weight of the items in the transaction. Then we have deal with compound items in incoming and assembly from the available stock quantity. So this variable here allows assembly of compound items from existing items in stock, and the system will not allow assembly of compound items in amounts that are basically larger than the existing or what you have available. And it will also restore assembled items to the original components. Then we have active information audit, and the user can activate this variable if there's an auditing administration in their company, or even if you wanted to activate auditing on documents by viewing a report with all the transactions, whether a user added something or edited something or deleted something, and you'll also be able to see the user who made that action. Next, we have link with SFDA, and this links all of the systems or administrations together. And after you're done setting up the variables and the options suitable for the nature of your business, you will need to click on edit so that the changes you made can take place, then click on save. That's pretty much everything for today's lecture, so we're gonna wrap this up for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, share, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we will see you again in the upcoming lecture.